Thanks for joining us today. We're going to run through our P6-Reporter this morning. I'm Nicole Jardin. I'm the CEO of Emerald and coming to you from Calgary. And doing the heavy lifting is Marilyn Backstrom from our Edmonton office. She's going to actually show the way that P6-Reporter works. Now, P6-Reporter is the foundational element. It's a mixture of our data warehouse, which we've had as a tool for at least 10 years, and some what I would call queries, and essentially grabbing the data in a way that makes it easier to work with. That's really the layman's way of looking at it. Rather than hundreds of different tables that we would have in P6, we've flattened that down to make it much easier to consume. And we've pre-built queries that grab data that most of our clients use. And then we add on to that your specifics, because everyone has codes, user-defined fields, things that are specific that they've added to P6 that we can't preempt in the data model. So we've got that so that we can build reports into any other system much, much quicker. So that's essentially what this is. So we're going to run through it. Marilyn's going to do the heavy lifting. And we're going to touch on why we've built this tool. So we've got a vast toolkit, probably the biggest toolkit of any partner, Oracle partner, related to Primavera tools. And it's because, although P6 is fantastic, it's not a perfect solution. There are still some common struggles that we all face when working with P6. So first, I just wanted to ask a quick poll. How do you do your reporting? So a lot of people grab stuff out into Excel, and that might work okay. The real struggle with that, though, is that it's not necessarily reliable. You are using filtered layouts generally, or reports, and you have to remember to do it. So that is the first struggle. Over the years, people use Access databases. It's becoming less and less, or they do reports straight up in Excel. But more and more, what we're finding is people are plugging on data tools, data visualization tools that are their corporate standards, and they're sharing the data that way. Okay, so we're going to talk about why we think P6-Reporter is a bit more of an elegant way, more reliable way than using Excel. So first and foremost, we might have some different data models, complex data models that we're trying to model, particularly if you're in a program environment. Okay, if you're in one project, grabbing data out and reporting on it is much more simple. Still potentially wrought with mistakes or problems, but it is definitely more simple. If you're in a large program with different business units and you've got lots of projects, that is much more complicated. Okay, more complicated in the terms of making sure that everyone's done their updates before you grab the data. And so we're going to touch on some of the important pieces to keeping a program nice and organized, and making sure that the extended team is getting access to the data that they need. So, reporting out of P6 has some strengths, but it can also be a bit overwhelming for a user. Let's say I'm in charge of inspections during a turnaround. I don't need to look at the whole Gantt chart. I need to know when my inspection crew needs to be where and when. That's what I need to know. And in a turnaround, that can change a heck of a lot. Okay, so I don't really want to try and plan the whole plan at the beginning of the turnaround. I need to be very flexible and dynamic. So this is where getting the data out in a consistent, controlled manner, self-serve, readily available for the extended team has a lot of merits. And that's why more and more clients are moving in the direction of using a warehouse like we've got. So we're going to touch on that. and having that data consumed out into their standard reporting engine, okay? Whether it be Power BI, whether it be Tableau or business objects, there's just so many out there in the space. So that end product, or where you consume it, we're trying to make the consuming of it into that much easier with P6-Reporter. Now, another thing that people struggle with using the Excel approach that I touched on is the accuracy. Okay, so I've seen people grab their data out and they grabbed it out wrong. Okay, they might copy and paste. Well, you might be in the wrong layout. You might be in the wrong filter. So you have to remember to do it. To do that, copying and paste and put it out into the other system, that's the first problem. The second problem is you might do it wrong. Okay, so if you've got the wrong filter on or you use the wrong layout. So as soon as you're asking somebody to remember to do it, you're leaving the door open for some accuracy problems. So having it more automated is what we're driving towards. And of course, not having to do that step. So it's more efficient if we have it more automated and we've got a control mechanism to make sure that everything's been done. Okay, so if not everyone's done their updates, if not everyone's moved the data date, you start to get inconsistencies in the way the data is reported out. So we've got tools that help automate those steps to make it more efficient. Okay, so often we have P6 calculator as well as data warehouse with P6-Reporter component together for our clients. Not all, but quite a few of them have both, because that helps automate the process of doing all the scheduling, make sure the data date's been moved, as well as getting the snapshots into the reporting engine where you can consume it. Now, ultimately, we're doing all this so we're getting business decisions into the right people's hands, right? We're helping them, we're enabling them make strong business decisions. And we can't do that if we've got stale data. So that's the big objective here, is we're trying to make sure the data is out there for them. So another thing that I wanted to ask as a quick poll question is, how often do you do project reporting? Okay, now of course this is a very open question. It depends on what kind of projects you're running. So if you're doing turnarounds, it's probably daily. If you're doing capital projects, that's where it becomes a bit of a toss-up. Okay, monthly, weekly, every 2 weeks is also something that I see. But on a capital project, ideally, we're driving to weekly. And what we're trying to do there is to make that easier for you. Now, as a group, Emerald as a group, we've been in business for 27 years. Now we have always had programmers on the team. So we do a lot of integration. Integration can help drive your team to those weekly updates much more efficiently. Okay, so we're just trying to automate, make life easier so that the team doing the P6 scheduling effort, they're really putting their effort into managing the schedule rather than dealing with all the data. So that's really one of the benefits that we're going to try and show you here today on using something like a reporting engine. So this, I'll touch on how it works in just a second. So that's really what we're trying to drive to. So the other thing I've seen people do is they plug queries right onto the database. I've seen that a lot, and there's some definite problems with that approach. And the other thing that I've seen people do is take copies of the projects to report on. So again, we're adding a lot of extra steps that rely on people, and they are all fraught with potential problems, okay? And maybe not best practices for resource management and things like that, okay? When you're taking copies of projects, it does affect the way the resource histograms are produced, and there's steps that you're going to have to do, changing priorities, making them all what ifs, things like that that you need to do to manage it. So again, we're just adding extra stress, if you will, extra steps for the schedulers to have to take care of. So P6-Reporter gets rid of that. Okay, so it takes that stress away, and piggybacked with P6 Calculator with automations, it really takes that stress away. So let's look at how it works. So as I mentioned, it's really, P6-Reporter is really a two-piece kind of tool. In the past, we used to have our dashboarding tool that we had built, but over the years, we were using Flex, and over the years, Adobe dropped the support for that tool. So instead of building another dashboarding tool, we decided to focus on building the query part, the P6-Reporter part, into the data warehouse to make that a dual use system. Since so many people were starting to adopt their own different dashboarding tools, that made a lot more sense so that we could accommodate and assist more clients. So the key thing here with snapshotting versus live P6 data and spreads. So spreads are the time-based data. So anything related to resources and expenses in those daily, weekly buckets, monthly buckets, that's a spread. So when you hear that terminology, that's what that's related to. So the key thing here is the accuracy, as I mentioned, the comprehensiveness of it. So you don't miss anything. It's happening automatically. And by building the spreads into the warehouse, it's much, much easier to deal with. If some of this data you cannot get at just by using back-end tables because of the way that P6 feeds it into the screen for the user, it's live. So it's not stored. Okay, so that's another weakness with trying to go after the back-end table. So we've stick handled that through all our technology, and it makes it much more flexible on how you manage that data. Now we can grab baselines, and we've got a lot of baseline controls. So this allows you to do comparisons. So that's another benefit to having a warehouse. So what that means is by snapshotting the data, I can have last week's update versus this week's, last year's update on the same week versus this week's. If you're doing operational type work, being able to compare this year to last year can be pretty interesting. So the idea of snapshotting also adds functionality to the kinds of data that you're dealing with. Whereas just pulling it out into Excel and creating a report really generally only gives you just today's outlook, and you're not getting that historical capability of comparisons. Okay, so there's huge benefits to having a snapshotting piece that brings into the comparison capability. So when we snapshot, I mentioned earlier that we make the tables easier to work with, or we denormalize them. And the other thing that we've done the heavy lifting on creating the spread generation. Okay, so if you're trying to do that through the back-end tables, it's not very easy to do it, to get it right, to make sure it matches P6. So people are usually using the resource assignment area to copy and paste that out, which again introduces the manual work. Okay, so there's a lot of weaknesses with going back end in this particular component. So as Marilyn walks through it, you'll see that we grab the data that people are looking for. So portfolio, project level data, including issues if you use the issues in P6, task level, activities and steps, spreads being the time-based data, resources and expenses, and then we've also got calendars and logic. So if you want to do comparisons or schedule analysis, claims analysis, we have that capability to do that with the data warehouse. And then, as I mentioned, we put on top the views that are pre-built, so that reporting is going to be much easier. And then you can push that data into whatever reporting engine you're interested in. As I mentioned, it allows you to do, of course, your current schedule reporting, data comparisons, snapshots compared to one another, of course, baseline comparisons as well. And then this gives you the ability to have a strong set of standard KPIs that you can use across your projects. Okay. Um, okay, so I think I've given you a good overview. I think what we'll do is I'll turn it over to Mary Lynn, and then she can start to walk through some examples. So these are examples. Keep that in mind. So this is a food for thought kind of presentation. It gives you ideas of the different outputs that you can get so we've got different outputs into Power BI, Oracle data visualization, Tableau that we can share. Again, just to give you different ideas. And we've chosen a specific industry for this example. We've got different industry examples as well. Okay, so this is just a food for thought that Mary Lynn's going to run through. Okay, it's all yours, Mary Lynn.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm just going to share my screen here. So first of all, let's have a look at some of the examples. These are in Tableau. Now, Nicole mentioned that this, of course, these reports, they're going to make your reporting life so much easier. But some of you may or may not be realizing just how easy it can make your life. Because how many of you have worked on projects, I know I have, where you've got a set of updates done, and then you've got a whole bunch of trending reports that have to go out. And there's a lot of manual labor involved in a lot of cases of getting those trending reports out. Well, what we have on the screen here is just, and as Nicole was saying, these are food for thought sample elements, but I've got portfolio summary. So this particular dashboard is not just showing me status. It is showing me that because I can see by the color coding, blue, you can see if I hover over it, for example, days, 367 and 367. So it's not under, not over, it's right on. If I look at the first column here is dollars, cost, I've got duration, and I've got hours. So you've got all three of those on one screen side by side, but the report is not just showing you that, it's showing you what the trending looks like. So you can see here, I've got some of these little indicators. Now, when I hover over that indicator, it's telling you what's going on there. In other words, this particular one, it's a cost one, it's over by $322,000 right now. And the trend is, yeah, I've got a problem. So you can, at a glance, you can see any of these indicators. Okay, I probably need to go in and have a look at those. Now, I've got one here that is showing me a different scenario, but you can see how easy it is. The snapshot of your project has been taken, so you've got the latest snapshot there, and you can go in and look at all these pieces of information for your particular portfolio on just at the click of a mouse, really, because you access it, it's all here. You've got project labor hours status by team, so you can get an idea, again, food for thought. Maybe your labor isn't by teams so much as maybe it's by subcontractor. Same type of scenario can be created there. So you've got a lot of different pieces that can play into this. Now, your combined portfolio up in the right corner here, it's giving you some overall completed, in progress, not started, and grand total. Well, you're probably wondering, why do I have a bunch of different pieces here sitting at the top? These, of course, are our filters. Well, if I want to look at a specific part of my portfolio, I can slice and dice it however I need to. So, for example, if I'm looking at, I want to find out what's going on with a drilling team, I can deselect and select one drilling team, for example, and it's going to select the information. So depending on what you want to look at, this is oh so much easier than trying to tally up all the information and do your trending and do all your statuses manually, basically. So this is one of the available portfolio summaries, and you've got different all these different filters. So depending on what piece that you feel has something you need to drill into, you can get very granular with how you slice and dice your information. So that's one example. Now you may be looking at this and thinking, okay, I don't, maybe you're thinking, I don't work with large portfolios. You don't necessarily have to. Just some food for thought here. If I'm looking at, for example, a turnaround scenario, and we have the projects for the turnaround, maybe it's different units and maybe all the units are in different files. You can pull them all together with a dashboard like this. So again, food for thought. Just keep in mind that it's not cut and dried, that you have to have a portfolio of X number of projects and pull them together. This would apply to many, many, many different industries and scenarios. Now, if we go across here, we have resource allocation here as well. Now, another dashboard, and by the snapshot, so we've actually got in here monthly snapshots. They're albeit a little old dates, but the idea, you can still see what it'll do for you. So I've got resource name. I can click on my resource and I can see what the profile looks like for that particular snapshot. Now, it goes further because it's telling you by project in the top right corner here. I've also got the project name, the activity name, and a Gantt chart showing me the activities that apply to that piece I'm looking at for the accounting. And I've got overallocated hours. Now, in this case, if I'm looking at this particular configuration of a dashboard, don't forget we can make some adjustments. So if I want to see what this looked like in November instead of December, so back a month, you'll notice it is interactive. It's reloading the information. I didn't have to go and pull a bunch of files together. I didn't have to generate a bunch of reports, export anything to Excel, none of that. It's there for me. Very easy to digest. It's very easy to read and understand. And you don't have to know how to operate P6 to operate these particular dashboards. So if I want to work my way down a little bit, because we were at portfolio level, we're looking at resources. What if we need to look at a specific project? Now, inside my portfolio here, I know already there's a couple of projects I really need to keep track of. One of them is called Facility 2B. That one has been a bit of a struggle as of late, so I want to keep an eye on what's going on. So if I go into the project detail overview. So you can see this is already on Facility 2B, but I can scroll through and click on any project that's in my portfolio. So let's have a look at Facility 2B first of all. Now, if I'm looking at how is this particular project doing now? Well, as of my last snapshot, I can tell right away that the duration percent complete is sitting here. I can see I'm late by 30 days, basically. I've got total bars at the top, and in Tableau, these black lines are telling you what the targets were. So you can see that we are over in all three. So the hours are less than the other two, but you can see at a glance that they're over. Now, again, as you'll see as we go through all of these different dashboards, if I hover over this, it does give me the detailed information. So it's not like it's hidden behind and you're left to click somewhere else and find it. It's all there. It's all ready to go for you. Now, if I want to see this, maybe I'm looking at this first thing in the morning after this last snapshot's taken, and I'm thinking, okay, that's where it is now. But just remind me a second, what did it look like last month? Well, if I want to go back and have a look at it, you can definitely do that as well. That information is available. So last month, we're dealing with 60%, 40%, still 30 days late. Now, if I take it up to December, now you can see progress has gone a little bit farther, but I'm still negative 30 days. So I haven't lost ground as far as how far behind this project is. Now, if I want to look at a few more details here, I can just click over to project labor hours. And you'll notice we're going through this and it's just a couple of clicks. It's so easy and you've got all your information to your last snapshot. So it's all at your fingertips. And you don't have to worry about, as Nicole was saying, okay, I've run a filter in a group of projects in P6. I'm maybe not used to running P6, so did I get the filter right or didn't I? Or do you have to go down the hall and ask one of the schedulers to run a report for you? All extra labor, extra time that really, it doesn't matter what project type you're on, we don't have it to spare. So if we look at facility 2B and we're looking at the labor hours, you've got the totals, you've got the variance, and again, you can go in and you can change to whatever snapshot you want to see. So if I wanted to go back to November and then take it up to December, you'll notice this one, there has been a change here because November variance in labor hours, negative 395. And now you'll notice in December, just a couple clicks of the mouse and I can see we have improved on that. Now, if I want to look at the project costs, same idea. Now, I could go in and look at a different project if that's what I'm looking for. But I did say facility 2B is the one I'm concerned about. I want to make sure it's still doing what it should do, but we will look at a couple of other projects as well. Now, if I'm drilling through and I'm looking and I know I've had an issue with facility 2B, I can very quickly check as far as the costs go. So I've got my variance. I've got costs by category. Now, this is a very handy one I find to have just right there ready for you because when you start running reports and something is over budget. It's costing you more than it should. You need to know and you need to know quickly. Okay, number one, where is this coming from? Is it labor? Is it material? Is it expense? Is it non labor? Where is it coming from? Well, in this case, we can see it's coming from our labor. Our variance is exactly what it tells you at the top here. Now, you could have a combination of that as well. So you'd be able to see where this variance number is coming from. So if I want to see what it looked like last snapshot, and you can see there isn't a huge change there. Now, if I go in and I look at another project, I could go in and change it, for example, and I'll just click another project that I know has been a little bit of a problem one in the last little while. So let's have a look and see what this one looks like. Looking not bad for the labor hours. So this one, you can see how easy it is to go through and just click on the different projects and it's going to give you the information. Now, clearly, this is the one I need to be most concerned about as far as the costs part of it goes. Now, what about activities? Maybe I've gone through and I've got the information that I need for where it sits, labor hours and cost wise. But if there's problems with labor hours and costs, how am I sitting in the activities department? Well, of course, I can go to another dashboard here and I can have a look at that information. Now, keep in mind that these are food for thought. So you wouldn't necessarily have to have them configured exactly the way these are. If you needed to include, for example, a code or something in some of these dashboards, definitely, like Nicole was saying, that can be accomplished. But just to give you some food for thought here, here is my facility to be as of the November 15th snapshot. So I've got all activities. At a glance, I can see I've got on time and I've got late. And just keep in mind, these are very small demo files, but this type of report could run off of, for example, a turnaround schedule. Now, I've worked a number of turnarounds. I don't know how many of you have been on turnarounds, but this is a piece of information that very, very commonly needs to be grabbed out of the schedule as soon as you've got the reports ready to run. Your updates are in and you've checked the information. In this case, updates are in, check the information, the snapshot runs, and it's all right here. Very little effort involved to be able to digest that information. And you can give people access to these dashboards who don't necessarily have to know how to run P6, which of course that makes it easier. So everybody can look at the information, digest it in a really easy format, and it's there automatically. Because as Nicole mentioned, you can automate the snapshots so they run when they're supposed to run and you really don't have to intervene. Now, critical activities, I've got 1 on time and 7 late. So activities starting this month. Now, if your time scale is shorter, this could be activities starting today or this week, whatever the case that you needed there. Activities finishing this month. Now, both pieces, very, very handy information to have at your fingertips. Now, this is for November. Now, if I change this, and I can change it, as you saw before, very easily to December. So when I change it to December, you'll see I've got a change here. 6 critical activities are now late. So you can get an idea really quickly if you're thinking, okay, was that activity considered a late one last month or not? You can always go back and check. But at any point in your project, you've got all this information at your fingertips. Now, those are some of the what we wanted to present as food for thought as far as your portfolio. And remember, these reports can do a lot of the trend analysis for you as well, which makes things oh so much easier. We've got project level information, so you can change the project and view the information. Now, you also have scenarios, and I've worked a number of projects that this was very handy, especially turnarounds. I worked one turnaround where we had over 500 control valves that we were tracking. And this is a small sample, but I mean, it might sound crazy to people who perhaps haven't been on turnarounds before, but we actually had this type of a scenario on the wall in a boardroom, and people were manually updating at one point what was complete, what wasn't. You no longer need to do that. As long as your schedule is updated, this is all going to summarize and generate these particular charts for you. Now, it makes it very easy because relief valve summary. Okay, where am I with the relief valves? Valves removed, valves in shop, valves reinstalled. Whatever the breakdown is, you can see what's finished and what isn't, and you can see what's started and not finished. So at a glance, you can see exactly, perhaps you've got you've got a scenario where there is a problem with what's going on with one of those relief valves or with one of your control valves. Very easy to see what's going on, and if there is a problem, address it very, very quickly. So this makes getting the Greenups done really easy. Now, we've got exchanger and piping Greenups, just to give you a look at some other scenarios you can summarize for as well. So you've done your updates, the snapshot's been created, the latest information is automatically in your Greenups. So it makes it very, very, very easy. And you can see in here, we do have some that clearly we need to have a look at. Now, this is a good indicator a lot of times somebody's missed an update. So that gives you a good idea of what to look into as well, because if your updates are not coming in as they should, your earned value is not going to be correct. This type of statusing is not going to show true information, that kind of thing. But this, as you can see, makes it really obvious that something odd is going on, because I've got inspect bundle, install components 100%, and I've got some of these previous steps that haven't been completed. So all at your fingertips, very, very easy to use. Now I've got inspection Greenup. This one, on a large number of occasions, this particular report has proved itself pretty much priceless, because this has given us an overall look at where do the inspections sit. Now, you're usually really wanting, not that you don't want to wrap your arms around everything going on in your schedule, but when it comes to inspections, they're a timed there's a timing issue in there. You need the inspections done. You need the inspections done when they're supposed to be done. Something falls behind, there's a domino effect, that type of thing. So this type of a roll up, extremely valuable. I've had to do this type of roll up out of P6. There's a fair amount of work behind it. So this makes it extremely easy. Your snapshots are set to automatically go, and you get the information you need when you need it, and it's up to date. Now, there's another report here, some more food for thought. Now, this particular report, you may be wondering, okay, what is this all about? Well, by system here, I've got different types of work. So, disciplines, when is it happening, and on what system? Now, keep in mind, if you're looking at a slightly different type of configuration that you're looking for, this could be area and equipment, things like that. But you can still generate these types of reports. So very, very easily, I can see at any point during the time frame of my project, or projects, I should say, I can see what's going on and on what system. Now, of course, if you know the plant, you're going to know what area the system is in anyways, and it may be just the system you're worried about, not the area, but you can slice and dice these particular displays in whatever way is going to give you the best roll up of your information. But some food for thought, this is one that has proven itself on many, many occasions to be very, very helpful, because I can see for fabrication, for example, on the bitumen system, I've got these three disciplines working in the same time frame, same thing below. Well, if some of them can't work in the same time frame on those systems, it's going to become very obvious. Now, we've got a racetrack by function as well. A slightly different look to it, but still your systems, your discipline, and you can see the color code at the bottom. So if you want to make this a little different look, same type of scenario here. Now, this color coding on the racetrack could be other elements as well. Maybe it's you want to highlight, maybe you're in a drilling project and you want to highlight rig numbers. Maybe you're in a turnaround scenario and you want to highlight, where are my cranes? You can produce the same type of report to do that. But again, as we've been saying all along, and not to sound like a broken record, but you can see how easy it is to go from report to report, and all the information is there for you at your fingertips, easy to digest. You can slice and dice it the way you need to, and you've got the information that you need. Now, we do have one more in the Tableau report here, which is Milestone Trending. So you might be wondering, okay, what would I use Milestone Trending for? Well, what the idea is, and this again has proven very valuable on a number of occasions, most occasions actually, I'd say. So what you've got is milestone names. So for this one, this is taken off drilling files. So that's what our portfolio is. So we've got types of milestones. So ready to license is what we've got selected right now, but you can select any of these. But before I change any of that, just what I want you to be aware of here is I've got ready to license well site. Now, what this is giving me, I've got actuals, I've got actual and remaining, and you can see baseline. So you can see at a glance what's going on, and you have the list at the side. Now, this is as of October. Let's see how this changes. So here's November, and let's go over and look at December. So you can see what's happening with your milestones depending on which snapshot you're looking at. Now, this is pulling off of my portfolio. So if I wanted to see another type of milestone, all I would have to do is just click into another milestone type. So depending on what type of projects that you have, the names, of course, would be different, but the idea is the same. You've got such easy access to very digestible information. So as I mentioned when I first started going through this, I knew from previous looks at our portfolio that the facility to be was one of the projects I need to keep track of because I know it's struggling. So I can start at the portfolio level and I can work my way through, or if I need to go in and just look at the project information, it's all there for you. So these examples are set up in Tableau. Now, we also have a set of reports that are set up in Power BI. So you'll get very similar information, and either tool can connect onto the snapshots and generate the reports that are configured in them. Now, I'm not going to go through all the Power BI ones. I just want you to be aware this can be set up to connect to either tool. And for example, if I wanted a management dashboard or if I wanted to go into project portfolio, you've got the same type of scenario available in Power BI as well. So whatever the tool that you're connecting to, you can definitely get these reports going and have all that good information ready to go when you need to look at it.
Do you have time to show one or two maybe resource ones in this one,
I
Marilyn?
definitely can give it a shot. Hopefully, I'll just bear with me one second here. I'm just
I
going
like
back.
that one. I like that one a lot. That milestone trending one that you just showed, really, really nice. So
Very,
that,
very handy.
yeah. So the difference with that one that Marilyn just had up for a very short second was the um, so within your project you're going to have lots of milestones, but will be certain kinds of milestones that you're going to want to track. So for example, an in-service date, power on, power off dates, those sorts of things. There will always be certain ones that are you want to group together and you want to track them. So that diagram had different kinds of milestones with the trend. So that's an important one. And as she showed you, as she's getting this going, as she showed you the um, the trending of it month over month, as she had in her snapshots, those can be put side by side. So you could have last month, this month, so you can see them side by side. Okay. In her example, she opened a different snapshot. You can put them to one beside the other. So really, really handy having snapshots. These are things that you can't do if you're using live data off P6, even if you make copies, which is a really onerous and not a great idea in P6. Okay, so this is where the value comes in having the data warehouse and the reporting queries already built and ready to go. So she's going to show you a few more, and this is Power BI.
Okay, this particular one, and I'm not sure why this is it's taking longer to load than it normally does, but I would attribute that to my machine just having a bit of attitude. But if we're looking at this one, this is, as Nicole said, Power BI. Now, you've got this is a resource allocation dashboard. Now, in this particular dashboard, you can, of course, set what report date am I looking at? Well, this is the November snapshot. Now, if I change this to December, it's going to change whatever information has changed. Obviously, it's going to update what needs to be updated here. So December looking different than November. So it's going to change all of these pieces. Now, when you're looking at this information, what you want to be aware of here, and I find this piece of it so handy because I've worked a lot of turnarounds. Anybody who's been on turnarounds knows more than I do, I'm sure, that turnarounds, what's one of the huge components of that? Resource management. So this particular piece is very handy for that. Not suggesting it's not for other projects, but because of the projects I've worked with, I find this extremely handy. So I'm looking at the pipeline crew. Okay, if I want to see what's going on here, I can go and look at, I've got the projects and I've got the assignments from this particular resource. Now, over the time frame, I can see, okay, because these are a little bit older demo files, it's showing us that May 2022 in our snapshot that was November, May 2022, we were projecting a resource problem with this particular pipeline crew. Now, what you want to be aware of as well, you can see you've got your Gantt chart, and you can see that this is showing us what activities the resourcing is assigned to. So what I can actually do here, you'll notice if I click on facility 2B, now, this particular piece, once it gets changed, it's going to show you where the facility 2B is there. So you'll see now I've only got facility 2B. So if you're wondering, okay, where does the project I'm looking at that seems to have some issues I need to address, where does it fit into the whole grand scheme of things? Very easy to see that. Just click on it in the bottom left corner. It's going to tell you where it is, what activity in the bottom right, and also this resource profile, I can see, okay, the assignment for pipeline crew for facility 2B, that's not where my issue is sitting in this current graph. So just a few things that you've got at your fingertips, and I don't need to go in and really do much of anything except a couple mouse clicks to get that particular piece of information. So these types of things very handy. Now over allocated resources, you've got the table as well. So if you prefer to look at the table. And inside Power BI, of course, you've got some other functionality here where I can go in and you can actually use some of the other functionality to look closer at some of these dashboards if that's what you need to do as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the idea is if this is your corporate standard, that's what they're using, the users will be used to using that. So rather than, they don't need to know P6, right? You can get the data into something they're used to using. So that's really one of the key drivers here. But you got to get the data out of P6 cleanly, efficiently, and accurately. And using Excel brings up issues. Sticking queries right on the database is a very bad idea. And copying projects is also, fraught with issues. Okay, so really having a warehouse on it is the best way to go.
One other thing I just wanted to mention, just again, food for thought for folks. Keep in mind, we're showing you portfolios and tracking down the road through execution, which of course is normally what you're focusing on. Keep in mind, when you're doing your planning process, you can set up all different types of scenarios where you can compare different what if in the planning process. Because I've gone through building a lot of schedules where you're looking at scenario one, you're working with the team, and they're saying, okay, we could execute this piece of work this way, or we could do it this way, or we could do it a third way. And sometimes the numbers get even larger. Now, as Nicole was saying, inside either Tableau or Power BI, you can create comparisons. And we do have a couple of reports that have been set up that way to do exactly that, scenario comparisons. So this putting your information into snapshots to be able to grab it so that you can do the decision making as to what is the best scenario versus most of the labor going into it to figure out the differences between and still have to make the decision after. When you can have the information at your fingertips, I'm sure you can see how much easier that makes everything. Uh, I see we're up at 8:54. Did you want me to go through any more of these reports, Nicole, or
No,
should we wrap it
think
there?
I think that's good. I
Okay,
think it gives the group some ideas anyway. This is what this webinar is about, is to get them the ideas on how having a process to push the data into your corporate reporting really can be valuable. Okay, perfect. So shall I take it back over and wrap it up?
sure.
Okay, and we've addressed all the questions so far. So if you do have a question, go ahead and throw it in the chat or the questions room, and James, Marilyn, and I will keep trying to address them during the webinar here. Okay, just taking it back and finish up. Okay, so Mary Lynn was able to give you a good idea of the output. We didn't really focus on how to do a snapshot. It's very simple. The snapshots are either automated so they can run every night to get a current snapshot, and then we usually automate, but you can also push a snapshot at any time. So we would automate potentially every single week. And with our P6 calculator, we can automate auto scheduling. So let's say your team is supposed to do the updates every week, let's say every Monday. And then the snapshots perhaps are taken on Wednesday so that everyone has a chance to get all their updates in. So that's generally the process. So if you're interested in that because you've got a program that you're managing, it would be a good idea to join the P6 calculator webinars. I think we just finished them, but there'll be more coming up, and they'll give you the idea of how you can automate the scheduling. With job services in P6, we can automate some portions of it, but what we found is it's not always reliable. So that's why we've had automated scheduling in Calculator for a long time, for over 10 years. So let's just touch on some of the benefits and some of the feedback. So visibility for managers is hugely important. Everything that we do in P6 is to try and communicate. But the problem is you need to be a P6 person sometimes to understand the outputs. So this takes that away, because the outputs now are using the P6 data, but they can be put into a manner that's much easier to digest. So the visibility on the progress, being simple and intuitive with different color codes and those Greenups that Mary Lynn showed you with the different colors, very simple to understand, no P6 expertise required. The accessibility, of course, being able to see the data wherever you are when you need it, right? Often in turnarounds, you've got meetings that are done every day and you run through a lot of stuff, but then being able to see that, grab it, filter it, screen grab it, print it, all the good stuff, very easy. Hugely important to focus on issues. That's our whole objective in project controls, is to get in front of all the problems so that we can keep the costs and timelines down. That's the whole objective. With the snapshotting, you save so much time having to push things into Excel, okay? That's really the key thing here. All that infrastructure, if you will, that you deal with as a scheduler sort of becomes less of an issue. It's gone. That issue's gone. So now you get to focus on what you're trying to do. And of course, the accuracy. So you want the team to have the best data available to make good decisions. That's the whole point that we're trying to achieve in everything that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So making sure that the earned value is accurate right down to the crew level is hugely important. Okay, so those are some of the little things that we've also improved using Calculator as an add-on to the way the out-of-the-box tool works. Okay, so making sure the data, all that stuff you're putting in is strong. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there. We have different case studies where we've done special resource reporting for Thales. They needed resource reporting that crossed activity codes, that crossed multiple projects, many different industries. So that's a good case study on very complicated in the sense that P6 couldn't do it very easily for them by themselves. So this is where plugging on the warehousing P6 reporting functions and pushing it into a different dashboarding tool is very valuable. In a specialty industry like that, your resources, your key engineering resources are where most of the expense can be. So having the transparency on what you're going to need today versus next year, and then comparing back and forth year over year, really important kind of reporting. And then Suncor's used our tools for many years. So we've done a lot of different graphics for them, and some of those Greenups concepts came from working in the turnaround spaces with many different clients. And as Marilyn showed you, we've got many different drilling examples. These are examples from client types of data. It's not their data, but gives you some food for thought for the types of things that people are looking for and wanting to use P6 data as that hub to drive it forward. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there. We'll turn it over to any additional questions that may come up. And of course, If you don't have any additional ones at the moment, we can definitely follow up afterwards if you want to reach out. I'll just put a quick little webinar follow-up poll. So if you want to understand a bit more and you want us to communicate back in a particular way, go ahead and fill in any of the items there, just so we know how to move forward with you. Okay, so that's helpful for us. So hopefully you saw something that could be interesting for your group. Um, Being able to warehouse the data in a clear, consistent manner in a simplified format. So that's the big thing here. So although Oracle has publishing capability in the latest versions, the way it's published is still difficult to work with. And we feel our dashboard is definitely, our data warehouse, I should say, is superior to how they put it together. The easy use of the queries that we've got, also hugely beneficial. So we're usually able to get some stuff stood up with clients within a few weeks. We can stand up some dashboards very quickly with our tools pushed into your corporate standard. We've done others as well, business objects and a few others. So don't hesitate to reach out. This is something that can be stood up fairly quickly with the way that we've implemented the systems. Now we've got a lot of other different tools as well, so certainly look to our webinar schedule to see what else. I've mentioned Calculator a few times because they go very well together. Um, and Calculator lets us enhance the data that you're dealing with in P6 as well. So we've done a lot of multi-currency, a lot of cost, different earned value types of calculation, working interest for different partners, all sorts of enhancements to data using calculators. So it does tend to go together quite well with the data warehouse and the reporter, P6-Reporter piece. But take a look. We definitely have a great track record on integrations, automations, so that what you do in P6 becomes easier and more valuable to the company that you're working with, the project you're working with, to get better data faster to people, out to people. Okay. We've got our QA tool, which helps with that as well. We've got our newer scrubber tool. So if you do a lot of importing or if you do a lot of exporting and sharing of files, the scrubber lets you control the data better. Okay, so that's a newer tool that we've got that could be of interest. So take a look at our webinar schedule. The whole focus of our team has always been to make P6 and of course contract management, expedition, unifier, AConnects work better for your team. I think we've got Mary Lynn's contact info, and if any of you are more in the APAC time zone, we've got our rep Donna, our manager Donna over there, who can also help you follow up on any questions. So feel free to reach out and let us know if there's anything else we can do to help. So I'll stop the recording there.